but we've always been talking about a big part of what we do here at ALARA Garage is to help foster and build this community of car lovers, car collectors, and we keep talking about kind of what are the kind of events that people would enjoy and would resonate with sort of our top client group and our Founders Club members. And we've been very excited to put together this event because we've been talking about doing this actually since before COVID started. So it's kind of nice to finally start to do these kinds of things. And I wanted to give you guys a quick rundown. We're so fortunate and really blessed to have the business growing the way it has. It took us 12 years to get to 200 cars in storage. And today, 2 years later, we're at 500 cars. It's been a great experience. Thanks to many of you here to have this kind of success, and having great partners with Michael and Jason and Nicole located with us here, and all of them having great businesses that all serve the same group of clients, and being able to present more services that all mesh together for you guys. As part of us moving here 2 years ago, buying the building in 2020 and moving in 2021, a big part of what we were doing was trying to expand our services. We're happy to announce that we have, many of you know this already, but we have our wine storage, ALARA Vino, and our art storage, ALARA Art, active. We haven't been marketing these things yet, but we have finally kind of fired up the websites and getting ready to kind of at least send an email to our clients to say, hey, we have these things in-house, but we're getting ready to do that. So as you guys start looking at where you might need to keep your art, your wine, etc., please consider us. We've got the lockers finally built. That took forever. The wine room has been refrigerated for literally since we moved in a year and a half ago, but we finally got the lockers built out a few months ago, and so it's all kind of all nice. So we have these lockers that will fit 12 cases of wine. They're $150 a month, so it's very reasonable. And that room is got redundant refrigeration, redundant power, so it will never go over 55 degrees. It will just be that forever. We have, for a long time, partnered with Chip Davis with Expert Auto Appraisals to send out Chip to look at cars both at individual sales and at auctions, to do checkovers of cars, sometimes even remotely, being able just to opine on a car that's just based on the listing. And he's a wealth of information, and we're so fortunate to have a relationship with him. Michael has been working closely with him on so many different fronts, and just brings so much to the table, and such a wealth of information about individual cars and about the general market overall. And so the goal for today is for Michael to lead this conversation with Chip in a casual manner. There's a prepared section, and then we'll be opening it up to open conversation. This is very much going to be an interactive experience for all of us. So please enjoy, and without any further ado, Mr. Foertsch.
All right, thank you, Laura. You guys all know who I am. I've known you. I've done business with you. You obviously know my dealership, but I think the really important thing, and I can't really overstate how privileged we are to have Chip Davis here tonight. Ara gave a little bit of an introduction, but when I go into car auctions, or I go and tell people that yes, we've got somebody to go and look at a car, and I go and I say Chip Davis. Well, the people in the industry, let's just put it this way: everybody knows who Chip Davis is in the industry, okay? And I mean in the auction companies and the dealers. And the reason why is because he's been doing it forever, and what has he been doing? He travels around the United States and the world inspecting cars for people and appraising cars. He also does some insurance and some other, and all the insurance companies know him as well because he travels around and does appraisals for that. But I could go on for quite a long time about Chip Davis, but he's in from Stuart, Florida, which is where he resides, even though he's on the road still most of the time anyway. And we're just very, very privileged to have him here tonight. And so as Ara said, I think most of you in this room, if not all of you, have heard me talk about some of the things that we're going to present today in terms of, the state of the market and some genres and where we buy and sell cars and what we recommend and things like that. The important part is not many of you have gotten Chip's perspective on that. And I have a dealership. You all know what I have downstairs in terms of the kind of cars that I specialize in. But Chip really brings a much broader perspective to sort of the whole collecting environment and the market and what he sees far broader than quite frankly, the kind of, when I'm nuts and bolts in on 70s and 80s Ferraris and Porsches and things. Chip is on a different level in terms of the overall perspective. So I'm going to have him do the majority of the talking, even though that's sort of difficult for me. So just as you guys know. So before I turn it over to Chip, though, I just want to tell you guys just sort of, again, this is going to be very, very casual. The intention is not for me to get up here with slides and give you a presentation. This is more of a roundtable. But what I'd like to talk about is, people come to me all the time, hey, Michael, what do you think about the car market today, right? Where is it? What's doing good, what's not doing good? So we can talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about some of the genres, right, that may be doing well, may not be doing well, that we think are going to be, in our opinion, sort of places to look at. And then we'll do a little bit of talking about some of the venues that, and those of you that come to me, well, should we sell this car at auction? Should we sell this car, I'll bring a trailer? Should we sell it on your website? Whatever. And then we can go and open it up. But the important thing is, please, this is a discussion for all of us. Raise your hand. If we need to go into the weeds on something, that's fine. We don't have a problem with that, and sometimes that's the most interesting conversations. So, with that said, let's start with sort of the current state of the market, because that's what there's not a day that goes by that somebody doesn't call me up or come in and say, hey, Michael, how are things doing in this car market today, in this collector car market? And even that's a big question, because we have to sort of say, well, what do you mean by that? Are you talking about 8-figure Ferraris, or are you talking about $20,000, Trans Am Recaro editions, right? I mean, those are very different markets. And so I'm going to turn it over to Chip so he can give sort of an idea of, the sort of what's gone on the last couple of years and sort of where he sees things, as they stand right now. So, Chip?
Well, first off, I want to thank Ara and Allison for being the great hosts and being able to see all you folks. Some I've never met before, and many I have seen a few times. Interestingly, I think over the last few years, I think we've seen a market kind of take off, and I think a lot of it was there's a lot of great cars, and there's a lot of great cars that are very deserving of some big numbers. When the markets go up, a lot of times some things that don't deserve to go up came along with it, and there was a lot of that. I was in an auction in January 2021. It was really kind of when the collector car market, that was the month that the collector car market took off after COVID. I had a friend of mine, dealer, brought 3 cars. He was kind of fed up with things as far as with the COVID, and he brought 3 cars down to Meekum in Kissimmee in January 21, and he was going to take his losses and start 2021 fresh with no dirt in the garage. And
this is a dealer friend.
A dealer friend. So he went down there hoping to lose $10,000, $20,000 on the 3 cars, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a piece. That was his goal. He walked away making $120 grand on those 3 cars. Okay. And anyways, he almost had a heart attack. Okay. It's literally, I think we were at a point. And what was interesting about it was, you had the experts, and this guy was a very capable guy, 40 plus years trading, was mainly American muscle cars. How does a guy miss a car that he's owned? He's owned the car, by the way, for 5 months. That's the reason why he took it to auction. And so we saw a lot of cars that were undeserving do some incredible numbers. And I think there's going to be exposure there, and I think, you know, water will find its level ground at some point. But there's also, the interesting thing is there's a lot of great cars that didn't really trade at the level above those cars that should have happened. So you would see number 4, number 3 condition cars doing very strong money, and top level cars only doing a small amount above that. And there was a lot of that in the marketplace. Me and ALARA actually experienced that with one, you know, a car that's actually here in this garage. So it's interesting as these new buyers that have come in, and by the way, in that auction, the folks at Meekum, which I've gotten to know quite a few, 71, I think it was 71 or 72, it was over 70% of all the cars that were sold at that auction, which in 2021 was the largest collector car auction in the world, were by first-time bidders. First-time bidders.
First-time registrants to the auction.
First-time registered at a Meekum auction, walked in there, and they just let it rip. And that was kind of an amazing thing. Obviously, there was mistakes made, and I think that there's a lot of that stuff. A lot of the $30,000 cars or $40,000 cars will find themselves that way. But I think as we move forward, I think the most interesting thing is a lot of top-level cars are cars that didn't get the recognition that they deserve, and that's something that we really kind of found. I think that we found, you know, cars that look similar to a very, very good car, getting to a strong percent, 90% of what a really top-level car would be. So I think as we kind of move forward, I think the quality, I think, will sustain anything. And I think, you know, most interestingly, some of the enthusiasm that we saw on those auctions when people came out of their houses in January for the first time in 2021, it'll be a little bit of help today, but I think at the end of the day, that's, you know, they're all big boys, and I think we'll get through it. But I don't really see, from that regard, I don't really see the market to be bad at all. I do think there's going to be a little bit of stuff getting flushed out, but I think overall the good cars are going to continue to do well. They may have a little ups and downs or what have you, but, you know, like I'm sitting here looking at that car, which I happen to know well, and I think actually the owner of that car is here, but you know, that's a great car, always will be a great car, always trade as a great car. And,
well, why don't you give a little more detail about the car itself? I mean, just to kind of give an example of what we're talking about.
Well, that's a Carrera RS. It's one of the 964 Carrera RSs. I think that's a 92, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And a very well sorted, very, very good car. I think, as a matter of fact, I went to Emeryville, California, and like May 1st or during COVID, as far as to go up and look at that for a different client. And anyways, that car got sorted by a gentleman, but that was up in Bend, Oregon. He did a fantastic job. That car drives great. The car looks great. The car's a great car by every measure. The car stands up extremely strong against all of its peers. And it's rare, it's fast, it's great to drive, and I think that's a car that'll do, you know, that's not just because it's here, there's many, many cars that qualify for the same type of thing, but that's just a good example of a car that will always do well, whether or not the market's up or up or down. It's just going to be a few percentage points one way or the other, in my opinion. I don't know if you have any different thought.
Well, no, I don't have a different thought, but just to expound on what you're saying, and again, not to go focus on the RS, although that is a car that if you asked me where you wanted to go and put some money on, those kind of cars, and we can talk about this later in terms of the cars that were never sold in the U.S. and they're very desirable and they're superior to the cars sold in the U.S. at the time. Now they're over 25 years old, and you can now buy these and you can bring them over, and you know that's a good place to be in a lot of cases. But I think the important thing is, and I know that most of you have heard me say this. If you know Chip, he said this to you before. And the reason you have Chip go out and look at these cars is because the underlying current is, regardless of what the market is doing, you have to keep coming back to buy the quality cars, right? Don't just go and buy a car because it's a deal, okay? Because the market is always going to move, and it's going to go up and it's going to go down. And many of you are successful business people, if not all of you, you understand that markets go up and markets go down in whatever segment you're in. It's no different in the car market. However, quality of the cars, and if you have a great example of a particular car, of that particular model or that particular segment, you know, the market may do this, but that car may just sort of move a little bit more. And what we've seen is if you're buying, again, the right kind of car in terms of desirability and things like that, generally those tend to go up. We're not saying that things always go up all the time, right? But I think everybody in this room is sophisticated enough to know that. However, if you're looking for future appreciation, then you know the advice is you're never going to go wrong paying more money for the right car. And it seems very simple advice, but again, when you're looking for a deal, that's sometimes hard to sort of get your head around. Now, Chip, let me ask you this question, because this the other question I deal, which is a corollary to what the market is, or how's the market doing this. Aren't we in some big bubble right now? Or were we in some big bubble with COVID, and because inflation is high and things are, you know, and what would you say to that with all these, you know, aren't we in a collector car bubble right now?
And I'm just going to go to the stuff that was just oversold with no foundation. I don't think that, as an example, you know, I would be at an auction and I'd be looking at $20,000 cars that are selling for $50,000. You know, those cars would be $20,000 cars again, and it could be, you know, the minute they just get presented to auction. I think there'll be, I think that frenzy's going to go away a little bit, but I don't think. What's interesting is I was here about a month ago for the Barrett-Jackson auction. It was the Barrett-Jackson auction, and we had an opportunity to go to it wasn't a Cars and Coffee, but it was a Cars and Coffee type thing at a place here in town on a Sunday morning.